And I get there 15 minutes early and I was that wrecked that I had to go into the toilet cubicle, put my hands in my head and just rest for 10 minutes just to try and collect my thoughts. And I get in there and of course, who's the first person up? Me. Hi guys, Dr. Ken Dutton Register here from STEM Venturist, and today is another seminar that I recorded all about science communication. What is the industry like? How do you transition into that? And what are some tips to try and transition into a non-academic role? And so this is going to be a 4-part series, and today's video is all going to be about what is science communication and what does a science communication career look like. Enjoy. Awesome. So today I really thought about that I would give you a talk about what does a career in science communication look like and how do you get there. So for those who don't know me, I'm a cancer researcher. I've been researching cancer for probably, 10, 11 years. I finished my PhD in 2012. And by all means, I think you would say that I'm fairly successful. I've got a H-index of 22. I've got more than 4,500 citations. I've raised over $1.8 million. I'm not saying that to brag, but just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from my academic background, because in the last year or so, I've transitioned somewhat more into the science communication space, of which I'm now doing part-time. So I'm 0.5 full-time equivalent in my academic role and 0.5 time in my science communication activities. And just to be clear, these are two completely separate initiatives. But I'm going to be focusing more on what I'm doing with my science communication, which is all about Excite Science. So I thought today we'd just sort of have a quick rapid fire, keep it fairly quick, smooth through, and really talk about what does a career in science communication look like? What does a typical path into science communication look like? And then for those that are interested, how do you transition into a role like that? And even though today's talk is more about science communication, it is going to be, some of the things that we'll be talking about will be transferable to any type of non-academic career. So what is SciComm? So SciComm is an abbreviation of science communication. And as it sounds, it's the communication of science. And this can be either to other scientists or academics, but it could also be to non-specialist audiences or members of the general public. And that's typically where we see a lot of science communication being focused around. And obviously, there's a big difference between the skill sets between talking to other scientists and then talking to members of the public. And so you might think when science communication or science communicators come to mind, you're probably thinking Neil deGrasse Tyson or Jane Goodall, for example. But these are really like the pinnacle of one aspect of science communication. And you'd actually be surprised when you actually delve deeper into what science communication is in a broader sense, that how extremely diverse science communication is. It's not just this, public figures talking to the public. And so to give you an idea, here's a quick slide deck showing you some of the other potential careers that sort of merge into, is merge even a word? Merge into science communication. And so here you can see, you can go from your more traditional sense of being a journalist, to policy, which might be around government, to consulting, maybe it's you're consulting other organizations how best to do their communication practices. It can be other scientists doing outreach, which is typically where a lot of us probably in this audience are probably in that realm. You could be an academic researcher actually doing science communication research. You could be an educator. There's a large body or industry there that are helping serve the education sector, both at primary and secondary schools, doing science shows, to museums. There's also exhibit designers that sort of fall within that category. There's startups in this space trying to help others communicate their science better through a wide variety of different mechanisms. You could be a film person, an artist, and then you can also be an entertainer. And then lastly, falling into that more and more social media or blogging category. So you can sort of see there's quite a large diversity of what science communication entails. Now, having been in this area or focusing a little bit more in this area for the last year, I think I have got a little bit of an idea of, what the type of stability in these roles are. So I would say that from my perspective, and I might be incorrect, but I'm about a year or 2 years to focusing on this, that a lot of the roles that I typically see people fitting into are generally in that freelancer, solopreneur category. And so here I've highlighted those exact roles, typically where I see a lot of jobs sort of being in that sort of category. So that's the ones highlighted in orange here. And this is not to say that some of these roles aren't leading into permanent positions. I just feel like because the industry is still relatively emerging and developing and not super established, that a lot of people start in these freelancer roles before then sort of transitioning into sort of more permanent roles, which currently at this stage might be a little bit harder to get into or harder to find. And then obviously I highlighted the scientist here, blue, because that's typically someone who's doing science communication for free as part of their academic duties. Hey, quickly interrupting you. If you're getting value out of this video, make sure to like it, or if you're not subscribed, subscribe here. Let's get back into it. So it brings the question of those, what's the career like then if a lot of it is sort of freelance-y type feel? Is there really stability in there? And is it much different to an academic career, which we know is sort of like generally on short-term contracts and maybe the stability is not always there? And so I tend to look at it as an opportunity, and maybe that's just because I'm a forever optimist. But I sort of see that this field or industry is really beginning to come into its own. And much like other industries outside of science, you're seeing more of this specialization and appreciation for those specialist skill sets. And I'm beginning to see that a lot of academic centers are starting to bring these, sort of positions into their communications teams and throughout other aspects of their stuff that they're doing. And so I see this as an opportunity that if you do get in now, you can potentially be one of those sort of emerging leaders in this space. And that's definitely the approach that I've taken. I know it sort of might have felt like a bit of a risk when I sort of went part-time, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later in the talk. But I see this as a massive opportunity. So you might be thinking, what's the typical path into a science communication career? And as you can see, there's not one path that fits everyone, mainly from the fact that science communication as a sector is so broad and diverse. So I thought I would maybe just talk about how I've done it. And so I'm coming from someone who's done their PhD and had no specific training. Now, there are areas where you can get specific training and get science communication qualifications, but I would say that's not necessarily needed per se, and it really depends on what your background is. And we can talk more about that in the Q&A at the end if anyone's curious. So why did I get into science communication? Well, for me, it was really one of the first experiences of giving a public presentation. And this is the first recorded footage of Dr. Ken giving a talk somewhere. I think it was just a training practice. But as you can see, I'm pretty much not even looking at the audience whatsoever. And that was one of the first things when I looked back and I was like, you know what, I think I can do better. And how can I go about that? So I decided it would be a good idea to do a 3-minute thesis, which back at the time was in its second or third year of its iteration. Obviously now it's going really strong. But I sort of decided to opt for it and go, you know what, let's give it a go. I'm going to commit to this. So me being me, I left it to the very last minute. I think I decided to start scripting out my talk at 10 p.m. the night before. And obviously that didn't go down well for anyone who's created a 3-minute thesis. That even though it's 3 minutes, it actually takes the same amount of time of preparation as it does probably for a longer seminar. And so I spent 4 or 5 hours writing a script. 2 in the morning, I'm like, yep, got it good. Now time to memorize. I go read it out loud and it's 10 minutes long. And so now I have to spend the next 2 hours chopping it down to 3 minutes. I have about an hour to try and memorize it. I go home, get about 2 hours sleep before I have to come in and give the presentation. Now I get there, I get a Red Bull, I get a chocolate, I'm going to need it because after that lack of sleep. And I get there 15 minutes early and I was that wrecked that I had to go into the toilet cubicle, put my hands in my head and just rest for 10 minutes just to try and collect my thoughts. And I get in there, and of course, who's the first person up? Me, I'm the first person. I get up there, put on my brave face, deliver my first line, get a laugh, which I was expecting, which is good, But then my mind went completely blank. I forgot everything. I didn't even know what my PhD was on. It was the most embarrassing thing I think that I've ever done, and particularly considering that all my undergrad tutors and lecturers were there in the crowd watching me. And from then on, that was a solidifying point in my mind that, I never wanted to be in that position again. And I really wanted to work on building my science communication skills. And this is the key thing that led me down this path of getting into science communication. And so, not so subtle plug, if you are developing your 3-minute thesis, because I know there's still a couple of people developing it, I do have a video, actually 2 videos on YouTube, and I'll put the link up here. So go check it out, it'll help you out. Don't do the mistakes that I did. Well, that's it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you missed the previous ones or you want to see the next videos, make sure to check out these videos as they pop up when they're ready. As always, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Bye.